So in this video, I will take you through 8 holiday tips to save fuel on and off the road. And I'll also speak about if you're driving in bad weather, because if you are going on the long road, you tend to get a lot of rain. You might start your road trip, it won't be raining, but because you're traveling so far, the weather can change en route. So the first tip we're going to start with is very important. I have done polls about this also on YouTube. Servicing your car. I know this is common sense and most of you probably do this. To avoid the rush right at the end to do a service, make sure a few months before you are going to go on a road trip, service your car so you know everything is in order. Because sometimes you'll go for a service, you'll do the normal oil check, whatever else needs to be changed, air filters. But sometimes you might pick up that your brake pads need changing, and brake pads are very important on the long road because that's going to impact your safety a lot. Number 2 is to check your tires. Now, when you're driving, tires can also help you in driving more efficiently. So if your tires are underflated, then you'll actually be causing more drag. And not only will your car wouldn't be as efficient on fuel, but you're also going to be wearing out your tires much quicker. And number 3 to note is that weight is your enemy. You sometimes see these cars like 4x4s. You can see they're built for the off-road. Some of them will have roof rails, they'll have a bull bar, and it'll look very, very nice, but those things won't be used. So any extra weight that you have on your car is going to cause your car to work harder on the road, and in that sense you're going to be using more fuel. If you are using those items like the roof rail and the bull bar, put them on when you are using them, and as soon as you're done, take them off, because if you don't, you're going to be using up more fuel, and I don't think you want that with the fuel price at the moment. Okay, the next step, it's kind of a general one, but it's just to drive sensibly. If you aggressively braking and aggressively accelerating, then that's going to impact your fuel consumption. So what you must do as you're driving, be proactive and analyze your situation, look around you, be aware of your surroundings, anticipate something so you can brake early and gently, and if you need to accelerate, you can gradually accelerate and prevent the times where you're unaware, or you might be looking at your phone or chatting to a passenger or something, and then you automatically have to hit your brakes quite hard or accelerate quite hard to avoid something. That's going to affect not only your fuel consumption, but also your safety on the road. Also, when you're driving downhill, don't shift to neutral. Yeah, it's a myth that's shifting to neutral on a downhill saves fuel, but this is not true. Not only is it not true, but it's also very dangerous to do. If you are driving aggressively, you're going to be hitting brakes quickly, accelerating quickly, which means you're going to be downshifting your gears more often than not if you're not anticipating. So remember, the key for fuel efficient driving is to stay in the highest number gear as possible. So if you can anticipate everything and you wouldn't need to brake, you can shift lanes while staying in a higher gear. Basically, if you're driving aggressively, you're going to be unable to do this. If you're in a situation where you have to tow, now remember I said earlier in the video that weight is your enemy. So towing, obviously you're going to use much more fuel than normal. So what you should do is, if you are towing a vehicle, drive about 10 to 15 kilometers less than the speed limit, because this will help you to maintain the fuel consumption. And remember, if you are towing a caravan, you will be using a bit more fuel. So instead of making your car work harder, make sure your caravan is well maintained. Basically, low tire pressure, wheel bearings, all these can have an impact. So just make sure your caravan, if you are towing a caravan, is well maintained so you don't have any of these issues and you can save on fuel. In the instance of hot weather, we all know that the air conditioner is very, very imperative to use. So if you find yourself in hot weather and you need to park somewhere, try to park in the shade, because if you park in the heat, when you drive again and you switch your air conditioner on, then you're going to make the car work harder to cool off the vehicle. Whereas if you did park in the shade and you put the aircon on, then the car wouldn't work hard to regulate the temperature, because if it works harder, then you are going to be using up more fuel. Okay, now let's speak about cold weather. So, some people think that if you are in cold weather, you should switch your car on, let it idle, but put the heater on to warm up the car. This is an absolute myth. Don't do this. The only thing you're going to do is burn more fuel. So in cold weather, you just start your car. The car is meant to warm itself up. If the weather is cold, you head out, just gradually, gently accelerate. Don't be aggressive straight away. Not that you should be aggressive at all when you're driving, but just go out slowly. The car will warm up itself and then you're good to go. With regards to driving in extreme weather, if the weather is very bad and you think it's going to be dangerous to drive, it's always better to avoid it. But if you have no choice, and if it is a bit bearable and you need to venture out, then you can do so. But take note of these tips I'm going to mention to you that will help reduce your risk if you do venture out into quite hectic rainy downpours. It's quite important, very often we don't actually check our wipers. We might be driving through summer all the time, and then all of a sudden when winter comes, we find ourselves in a rainy downpour, or you might be in a place where you're getting summer rain. It wouldn't be nice to find out that your wipers aren't effective when it's actually raining. So before you do venture out on a road trip, check your wipers. I mean, there's various ways to check it. Just see how it cleans. Put some water on, spray some water. Just see how it's cleaning the windows to make sure you can get visibility, because torrential downpours can reduce your visibility a lot. If your wipers aren't working effectively, it's not going to be good. I have mentioned this earlier, but it's important if you're driving in bad weather. Check your tires. Make sure they at the manufacturer's specification. You can open your door, and inside the door handle there's normally they tell you what the tire pressure should be. Make sure it is like that, because the tires are your only point of contact with the road. So if your tires aren't inflated to the correct manufacturer specifications, then you could be putting yourself at risk on the road, and other drivers as well. Very important, keep your headlamps on. There's a lot of cars nowadays, the newer ones especially, have an auto function. I would recommend keep your lights in auto, because then whenever the visibility goes down, you can put it on. But also note that sometimes if you're driving in auto, when the weather does dim a bit, then it automatically doesn't come on. But in any case, it's always important to keep your lights on, because if you put it in auto and you're driving in the day, it actually wouldn't switch on. So just put your lights on, but then just remember to put it off when you switch the car off, because you don't want to be sitting with a dead battery. And also with your lights on, not only will it improve your visibility, it will give other people visibility of your car, especially when you're driving at night. If your headlamps are not on, it can pose a dangerous threat on the road. I mean, I'm sure this goes without saying, but defog your windscreen. If you notice that there's a bit of fog building up at the bottom, make sure you put on your demisters front and rear, so you can avoid doing it when it's too late and your visibility decreases, because as you know, reaction time is very important on the road, and if there's anything blocking you from 100% clarity of vision, then that's not good. Rather do it sooner rather than later. And also, planning your journey is very important. If you do know that it's been raining over the past few days and you are going to be going out when it's raining, plan your journey, have a look on the route and see if there are roads that are flooded. Maybe stop at a garage or stop somewhere before the floods to wait for everything to clear. You don't want to find yourself in that situation where you are in the flood. So plan your journey accordingly and make your stops as you see fit, so you can avoid those situations unnecessarily. Also, when we're driving in wet weather, we concentrate a lot on the road. We worry about the windscreen. We worry about our visibility in front of us. And then we're always looking at other cars, making sure our following distance is fine, looking at the oncoming cars. But sometimes we might forget about pedestrians and cyclists. So just keep a note that pedestrians and cyclists also use the road. And sometimes, on some freeways, you'll get some people that might just run across the road. So that's quite dangerous. So just always keep a lookout. Ask your passenger to keep a lookout if they see any pedestrians or cyclists, and they can make you aware of that also. That does help. Remember to slow down. Following distance is really important, in any time you're driving, and even more so when you're driving in wet weather. The rule of thumb is generally in normal weather, give yourself a 3-second following distance, but when you're driving in wet weather, you need to up this to 6 seconds. So if you notice you're getting too close to a car, brake a bit, give that following distance, because if something happens and the car in front of you has to emergency brake, you need a following distance to be able to brake as well, because if you're too close, then unfortunately you more often than not would knock the car in front of you and you wouldn't be able to brake effectively. As far as possible, avoid driving through puddles. Some of these roads on the long road, you're not always driving in your locality where you know the roads very well. If you venture out in the open road, there might be potholes, but the thing is, if there's a puddle in there, you have no idea how deep it is. So on the edges, you can't really see. So if you do see a puddle, make sure you go around. And remember, driving in wet weather, puddles could appear anywhere. So that's why it's important. Maintain following distance, reduce your speed, take all these measurements into consideration when you're driving on a wet road. Oh, and also another thing, if you're driving sometimes and it is raining or there's a lot of puddles on the road, when you are driving, and then if there's a truck in the oncoming lane, whenever they pass you, they tend to, if they hit a puddle, they'll shoot water onto you. So just watch out for that, because if you are planning to overtake, or if your following distance isn't too great for the car in front of you, let the truck pass. The water will shoot onto your windscreen. Just make sure you wipe it off, and then you can carry on. And also, just be aware of overtaking in the rain. Overtaking in general weather and dry weather is also a bit dangerous, because obviously of oncoming lanes. Never do this over a barrier line. And even more so, be careful in wet weather when you are overtaking. And lastly, the last thing I want to mention is, you never know what could happen when you're driving in wet weather. The road in front might be flooded, there might be a roadblock. So if you find yourself stranded due to wet weather, make sure you have an emergency wet weather kit. You could have, if you're driving with kids, have some snacks, have a waterproof torch, have a raincoat, even a change of clothes, because maybe if you go out or you get wet for whatever reason, at least you have a change of clothes and you can be dry. I don't want to end this video without saying, please, when you get in the car, the first thing you must do, ensure that all the passengers, every single person that's in a seat, has a seatbelt on. And remember to adjust your rear view mirror on top here, because sometimes if there's more than one driver, you don't want to be driving and then see your rear view mirror isn't adjusted and do it while you're driving, because that's a bit dangerous to do. So guys, that's the end of this video. I hope that some of these tips spark something in your minds to be aware of, to be conscious. All of you who are on the road, I wish you guys a safe journey. All the tips that I've been getting via email were kindly provided by Ford South Africa. I hope you enjoyed this video, found it informative and entertaining. So guys, enjoy your holidays, and I'll see you in next week's video.